Come on, baby.
If it was easy, we'd all have to figure out by now. Oh, you got your pictures on the wall, got your posters on the wall, got your problems on the wall. All your problems, all your problems, all your feelings, we're supposed to care somehow. Oh, you got your pictures on the wall, got your posters on the wall, got your problems on the wall. Yeah, all your problems, all your problems. We're all working harder, waiting for a good chance to get the distance farther, waiting for a good chance to be another victim or martyr. Say anything to get me out of here.
Hey everyone, welcome to Diverge Media. I'm Greg Staley, the owner of Diverge Media, and thanks for joining us tonight. We have lots to cover tonight, and so we're going to do our best to get through it. But if you've been tuning in recently, we've been trying to keep continually up our game as far as quality and things like that go. This is not a perfect setup. We're hoping to have a proper studio here soon, but we're doing the best we can. So to show you the topic bar tonight, this is how it's going to run. We have 5 topics on the board. We're going to cover them the best we can. Take questions on the side. If you have a relevant question to the topic at hand, please do so. Please put it in the comment section. We want to have a discussion with the audience here. So first off, Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Then we'll be getting into Cole Squire being refused entry to the debate at the Brantford Chamber of Commerce. Then we'll talk about a report co-championed by the Privy Council Office on social credit. That will be the main topic here, and we'll use our imaginations and expound on things a little bit. We'll talk about a McMaster University student talking about leaving her degree altogether because of the vaccine mandates. And then clean, dirty hands. That's a reference to O'Toole's approach to vaccine passports and mandates. So I'll talk what we mean about that there. So it looks to be like we got lots of people saying hi, so make sure to leave comments. We want you to be engaged. And before we really get into the topics at hand tonight, before we do that, I have a few articles, so we'll just take that off for now. I have a few articles I thought would be interesting to touch on here that maybe you missed, or maybe it's worth going over for people here. So first one's first. This is an article we wrote based on UK data. Let's follow this down here. Sorry, everyone. Computer's being really slow tonight, so I apologize. I imagine it's going to be a little bit laggy. This was written July 6th of this year, and basically we took the UK data at the time that was released, and we expound upon kind of, is it something to be utterly doom and gloom about? Is it something we should be overly concerned about? So Public Health England is an executive agency of the Department of Health and Social Care that provides the UK government, parliament, and national health services, among others, with evidence-based professional scientific expertise and support. The agency released a paper on the 18th of June of this year that showed that the Delta variant was much less lethal than the Alpha variant, contrary to what academic COVID doomers have been telling the public. So here's the chart here. I'm going to go through it. There's total at the time, 224,000 cases of the Alpha, leading to a case fatality rate, which is fundamentally different than the infection fatality rate. These are cases that are tested for. Seroprevalence data will take blood and see if there's antibodies for COVID, and that's your infection fatality rate, which is going to be lower. But we're just going on the case fatality rate of this data. Now, for the Delta variant, a total of 60,655 cases with a case fatality rate, everyone, of 0.1%. Okay. 0.1% was the case fatality rate of the Delta variant in the UK data, June of 2021. Now we're going to continue here, break this down a little bit further, because I think it's important. I really think this is fundamentally one of the things that's being overlooked right now, is that if Delta is taking over its predominant variant, yes, it is more infectious. And again, before we go a little further, I guess I should pop this on, disclaimer, they not necessarily those of Diverge Media, because we do live coverage, but please visit official government resources for more information on these topics. Okay, so continuing back here, and I apologize for the background noise. I have my daughter crying in the background. It's just one of those things, life of a father and running a studio inside your bedroom, but I digress. So if the Alpha variant represented 224,000 cases in the data with a case fatality rate of 1.9%, and the Delta variant represented 60,655 cases with a case fatality rate, this means that the Delta variant itself is roughly 19 times less lethal than the Alpha variant. Okay, the good news is that our facts rule over fear, and in this case, Delta variant could be, truthfully, it could be a good thing for the world. Now, to drive this point home a little bit further, if we did the math equation and flipped the Alpha and Delta variant as far as case fatality rates, if 224,000 individuals that had received or have gotten the Alpha variant had gotten the Delta variant instead, an additional 4,032 lives would have been saved. So 1.9% of 224,000 equals 4256, 0.1 of 224. And so there's the math. But anyways, basically, we're talking a lot less lethal, 19 times less lethal. Many lives would be saved if it would have been the Alpha variant. Now, bridge this conversation a little bit more here. Pop in the comments. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, we're good. Now, let's just be blunt here. Right off the hop. I have family myself. I have people I know that think this will all go away if everybody just gets their 2 doses. Okay, so the reason I bring this up is there's a couple of documents we're going to talk about tonight, but specifically, let's get into an article by the Washington, either Wall Street Journal or Washington Post. Let me pull it up here. The Wall Street Journal. Okay, so in Israel, fully vaccinated now means 3 shots, and we're just going to read the first paragraph here because it's really all we need as a talk point. But written August 31st, 2021. Oh, of course, you're not going to. Okay, there we go. It won't let me do it. All right, holders of the vaccine passport must get a 3rd dose within 6 months of their 2nd dose. Otherwise, they will lose their ability to have the green pass, which is their version of the access to everything pass. So in that case, we're already talking. We're at a point where people are saying, just do it, just do it, just do it. Nike, everyone. And in this case, we already have evidence from a country that's a few months ahead of us in terms of their schedule. And you'll notice I'm being careful with my words. That is already talking about boosters being necessary. And not just necessary, but every 6 months, it sounds like you're going to need one, according to Israel. And so they're going to remove freedoms if every 6 months you don't sign up again. Now, we previously reported it was an Angus Reid poll. I don't have it in front of me. But it was about 1,000 people polled here. And then I think it was 7% or 8% on the first go around. You're going to have to read between the lines here. On the first go around, received some serious adverse effects. Okay, so that means they were kind of down and out for a day or two kind of thing. But now on the 2nd dose, it was up to 15%. So the question here is, if it made that leap, will we continue to see that? Hopefully not. Hopefully not at all. But will we continue to see that with boosters? Will the events continue to go up? I guess is the concern there. And so I think it's something you need to talk about if you have people that are pro this passport and pro that line of thinking, that it's just a matter of getting people to get along, to go along, so to speak, and then it will be done. because it's already being talked about that they're rolling this out, and it's going to be longer. Now that's just one document, or it's going to be every 6 months, and it's going to continue going on. And that's just one document. Now we get into this conversation about passports. The World Health Organization released a document, and thank you to the people who send things in through comment sections. When you actually have great information, a lot of people do that, sending great information, either send it directly to me by email on the Facebook page or in the comment sections. I do read that stuff, and when there's some legit information, I will talk about it. So somebody put this in the comment section, and appreciate that. But the World Health Organization has a document out kind of talking about what they see with these passports. So we'll just pull that up. Implementation considerations. You see here, World Health Organization. Maybe I don't really want to go all the way to the top here. The computer's acting like garbage. But digital documentation of COVID certificates, technical specifications, implementation guidance, World Health Organization. So hold on. It's so laggy tonight. Oh, no. So there we go. Implementation considerations. And this is the part that stood out to me. So short term, oh, too far. Oh, the computer's just acting like garbage. Sorry, everyone. Okay. I'm on. A little closer. All right. So on the side note, if you want to help Diverge Media get a new laptop, because I'm pretty sure I'm getting pretty close to this conking out, please visit divergemedia.ca. We take donations. We also have merch there. But here we go. Short term, this is an acronym, the DDCC that they're using, but we'll just insert passport. Okay, so short-term passport versus solution. Deploy a short-term solution to address the immediate need of the pandemic that includes a clearly established end date and a roadmap towards discontinuing this. Okay, so solution is once COVID is no longer considered a public health emergency or international concern under the IHR. Now, they also give the possibility scenario. I'm not sure how you'd paint it, but they basically say, like, listen, if you're thinking about maybe more long-term, maybe this is the approach. Deploy a solution to address the immediate needs of the pandemic, but also to build digital health infrastructure that can be a foundation for digital vaccine certificates beyond COVID-19. For example, digital home-based records for childhood immunizations and support other digital health initiatives. So pull that off just because I think we could do with less on the screen. Clearly, the computer doesn't like handling it. Clearly, this is already, they're kind of painting this scenario where they're already kind of factoring in, is this going to be something we keep? And that's the World Health Organization. That's not our government, mind you. But this is in a document being proposed and sent out to heads of states. And they're already talking about the possibility of this being integrated into, a digital for everything. We'll just leave it at that. And so you have to ask yourself, you look at Israel, let's just ask logical Socratic method questions. We were told it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Then we were told these vaccines would be the savior. And then they were rolled out and they were hit, or they were pounded in the most vulnerable populations. And by all means, it seemed like that was going to be back to normal. And then that didn't happen. And then they moved the goalpost from whatever the rate was it 65, 70? Now they moved it up 80, 85, and the goalposts keep shifting. The Israel data saying this is that there's already, the boosters are going to be every 6 months, or you're not going to qualify for that green pass, that vaccine pass, we'll call it. And then we add into that the World Health Organization document talking about governments. Maybe they're basically saying, if you have a short-term idea of this, you should have an end date in mind. But if not, you should factor in how you're going to basically bridge that in to be used for other things. And so ask yourself the question, does this seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon? Now we get into the actual show. Thanks for joining Diverge Media. Again, we got our show topics at the bottom of the banner. We want you to throw your comments in as we go through these topics. I want input from my audience, and I think it's important that we have input and discussion as much as possible. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, that is where we are starting. And pull off a couple of links here to make sure the computer doesn't crap out. But let's go into it. Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. This is my article for today. You can check it out. Vaccine passports are a blatant and unjustified violation of charter rights and freedoms. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Yeah, and everybody, my thumbnails are getting better. Is anybody want to give me a compliment? These are all done by hand, I bust my rear end on these. They're starting to get better, slowly but surely. I'm starting to understand how to not make them look terrible. But I apologize. I know a lot of people have bared with me through just some atrocious video quality, thumbnails, articles, all sorts of things. So we appreciate it. But getting into it right off the hop. They've indicated that they'll be taking the government to court, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, due to their decision to implement a vaccine passport. Okay, so on this topic, the release says that the sweeping amendment was made on August 24th in this year. Yes, it says it provides the chief medical officer with new extraordinary powers, including the power to require. This should just stop here. This is getting. I mean, if it was out of hand before, this is next level. It's beyond reason at this point. But I'll finish the quote here. This new sweeping amendment made on August 24th, 2021, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom release says it provides the chief medical officer with new extraordinary powers, including the power to require any organization, including churches and other places of worship, to deny service to the non-vaccinated. Okay, as such, they're taking them to court, but I mean, they're talking about the mandate. The JCCF calls it unthinkable. They call it unthinkable that any government would require these experimental injections. They say that the COVID shots are new and clinical trials will not be complete until 2023, and as such, COVID shots are experimental. Each of the shots also contain warnings from Health Canada, including warnings about pericarditis, myocarditis, and thrombosis. It is unthinkable that any government would require these experimental injections as a condition of full participation in society. Okay, now back to the article here. You want to check this out, share it out. But this is, again, if you've been following along for a while, I do my best to actually link everything that is, you would say an important topic or a controversial topic in my articles. So on the myocarditis and pericarditis plan, there's also reports of Bell's palsy, blood clots with low platelets, capillary leak syndrome, Guillain-Barré syndrome. And these are all linked right back to the Government of Canada's websites on these topics. You can click that out. But you can see, that's the list. And if I guarantee it, if you ask most people, do they even know? Do they even know that's a possibility? And then what's the risk demographic in somebody my age that doesn't have comorbidities? We're talking less than, it's like 0.027%, I think is the last data I seen on it. So the risk and reward ratio of younger people is astronomically different than that of an elderly population, you would say. But continuing forward here, vaccine passports to JCCF. This is what Section 2.1 of the Reopening Act states, and I'm going to pull that up for everyone here so you can see it directly from the regulation itself. General compliance, okay? So just so everybody knows what we're talking about. OREG 36420, rules for areas at step 3 at the roadmap step. Okay. Come down here. So section 2.1. Specifically, the person responsible for a business or organization that is open shall operate the business or organization in compliance with any advice, recommendations, and instructions issued by the chief medical officer of health, or by a medical officer of health after consultation with the office of the chief medical officer of health. This could mean requiring the businesses or organizations to establish, implement, and ensure compliance with the COVID-19 vaccination policy, or setting out the precautions and procedures that the business or organization must include in its COVID-19 vaccination policy. Okay, so that's directly from the regulation itself. Now we get back into the article here. Section A of the Act, obviously concerned, but Jorge Pineda, a staff lawyer with the JCCF, said that vaccine passports are a blatant and unjustified violation of charter rights and freedoms. The release from the Justice Center also raises the concern that these new vaccine, quote, passport laws grant the government a plethora of power. Not my words, lawyers. This is Jorge Pineda, a staff lawyer with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. That's his words. In the release, also linked in the article. Check it out for yourself. And Mr. Pineda worries that it will allow, quote, the province to create similar and further far-reaching measures in the future. So here's a lawyer laying out the argument. He's saying, listen, not only is it a concern of this actual regulation that's clearly a charter violation, but also I believe it opens the door potentially to further government overreach in the future. Okay, so now we have, again, it's not my words. I want people to understand, and it was part of the reason, and I'll just touch on this quickly. For the people that watched, I was upset at how protesters acted at Justin Trudeau's campaign launch. Now, it's not because I think Justin Trudeau's a good guy. Let's be clear. It's not because I think he's doing a good job. It's not because I think he doesn't deserve a little bit of heat. It's because I don't look at it from a civilian standpoint. I look at it from a 15,000-foot view. I look at it from a journalist standpoint, and I knew exactly what was going to happen. They were going to smear people with that. And in fact, it took less than about 5-10 minutes into the campaign speech itself, where Trudeau was speaking, for a they were asking questions. As soon as the journalists got a chance to ask questions, the first questions they're asked, people are saying X, Y, Z in the crowd, and then they brushed everybody with the stroke of, therefore they're like that. Now what happens, and this is my grievance, and if you don't like it, so be it. I'm not your outlet then. My issue is that when this happens, it makes the work of academics, journalists, intellectuals, people that are we need to win hearts and minds. And now it's super easy to brush people like myself with a stroke of anti-whatever. And then people's anchor point in their head about what those people are like is the people chanting F Trudeau, pedophile, and other things like this. That, by the way, when there's kids and stuff around, that's inappropriate. But that's aside from the point. So this is what happens. Now, I say all of that to say, here's a lawyer who's telling you a lot of the same things you're going to hear coming out from these crowds, a lot of the grievances. Now, they weren't expressed at all intellectually, articulately, or in a proper way, and that's my concern, because I understand how this shakes out. I understand how people look at this, how it works. Now you have people like Jorge Pineda who's fighting these measures, and they're being lumped in with groups that are willing to, and guess, I'm not saying there's not legitimate grievances and reasons to be upset. I trust me, I'm more sympathetic than any journalist probably is in Canada as far as media goes. But I'm coming at this from, we need to win hearts and minds. And if we can't win hearts and minds, there's no chance that people are going to buy into the ideas that are needed to be implemented, or they won't change narrative. You're making it easier for them to cement themselves into these things. Now, every action has a reaction. I understand that. People are rightfully pissed. But when we allow ourselves to be pulled into that pull and pull, we're playing into the game. One of the things Trudeau actually talked about, and I've been swamped for anybody following me right now, but when I was listening to his speech, he talked about the need for more speech laws and referenced the crowd. Stop playing into their game. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave that at that. And this is being played into the narrative. And it's not easy. And you know what? I had somebody say to me, you need to do enough to get noticed. I understand that argument too. but you don't want to do something that gets you noticed for all the wrong reasons. So there's lots of good people fighting this, and this is how this all ties together in my head. And I see the comments pouring in, and I'm almost scared to look, but there's lots of good people fighting this. And we need to understand the bigger picture here. It's not, I could blow the lid tonight and talk about how angry I am. And I think I said to somebody who didn't see eye to eye with me on this, I said, listen, I'd be lying to you if I wasn't yelling certain things behind closed doors, but I would never repeat them in public because I understand how it's going to be viewed in the public eye. And I understand the mountain ahead of us. Let me lay this out for you. You know, people were sending me quotes from the Gulag Archipelago. I'm actually listening to it. I'm about 10 hours into the audiobook. I'm familiar. But lay out the big picture here. We have hearts and minds to win. There's a campaign going on right now, an election. And if the issue is for you is restrictions, lockdowns, and that's the number one issue, and then you go to a place and you act like that, and then they attribute that to the party that you want to vote for, which is what they're trying to do with the Conservatives, and I'm sure the PPC is going to get some of that too. But I'm bringing this around. There is a party fighting against lockdowns, restrictions. It's the People's Party of Canada. I'm sure there's other independents out there. Again, vote your values. That's been my whole argument. It doesn't matter who represents your values. Vote your values, but understand. This is what happens. They use that tiny thread and they keep pulling and pulling and pulling, and then they tie it to as many things as they can. And what happens is that people discount the argument. They don't even want to listen to you anymore because they start lumping you in with the anchor point of association of all the vitriol and over the top anger that they hear, and they hear that anger in your voice and they say, well, same, but it's not. There is very, very legitimate grievances with lockdowns, restrictions, the handling of things. And my whole point is, and if this is not for you, but my whole point is, listen, I'm playing big picture here. I'm not playing for today. I'm playing for the future. I'm trying to do things that matter for the future. We need to win hearts and minds, and we're not win. All you're doing when you yell, show me your smile. By the way, it sounds super, like, you hate to use the term, but it sounds super misogynistic when you're yelling that at a girl. And that's exactly what the journalist came up and quoted. And then I started getting attacked. People attacked me for releasing that article, or sorry, releasing that video where I showed a man calling me a pedophile. He zoomed in on my press credentials and he called me by name and said, why are you supporting pedophiles? Because I'm there showing live coverage. And then I had other people. This is the one last point I want to make about this, and we'll move on. I didn't even want to spend this much time, but I feel it's worth doing. I wore a mask to get that coverage. The funny story, let me walk you through this. They had, you had to go to Brian May's office to get checked by the Liberal Party campaign staff. So you have to go in there with your mask on. They ask you who you are, what your outlet is, and you have to pass the sniff test. So that was step number one. So what I did was I put on my pink dress shirt and I said, okay, now I got my camouflage on. And I went in there and I got let in. And then people were mad at me, and I want to say this was the whole point. The right seems to have a problem with eating their own. What do I mean by that? You say you want people that are truly independent on your side. You say you want people that are able to think for themselves and provide coverage that, is truly what happened. And then you freak out and get over the top angry with someone because they have a difference of opinion than you do. And so I had all these comments coming in mad at me about, wearing a mask. Oh, I had people, this is what I was going to say, angry that I would learn the names of the different staffers and people at the campaign, different journalists, talking to them. They were just so angry that I would be kind to someone they didn't like. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here, okay? Secret time. You want to know the best way to get people to talk about things that they may have otherwise not talked about? Be their friend. Be kind. Do you want to know a way to get people to clamp up and to never talk about anything that matters? Be over the top and angry. Now, I had people angry at me because I was being nice. And I learned a lot, by the way, by being nice in that little, that couple of hours I was there. I was talking to campaign staffers. I was talking to people associated directly with the prime minister. And I regret zero of it because I got a whiff of their mentality about how they think about this. And some of the journalists were saying things like, some of the sorry, I just read Linda's comment and then I got distracted. Some of the journalists were saying things like, listen, if you're going to yell, I have questions. Hey, somebody said, hey, like they're yelling at me, ask the prime minister a real question. And he literally said, well, why don't you suggest the question then? Because to them, all they hear is noise. And they're there to do a job. That's the other thing. You don't have to like them. It doesn't mean they do a good job. But at the same time, they're there to do a job. And I'll posit it to you this way. If I didn't have any sympathy or compassion for lockdowns, restrictions, and how hard it's been on business owners, young people, I mean, the amount of suicides, I know personally, people, I think from people I know, I'm up to 9 between friends and friends they've lost. 9 suicides. If it was someone else who didn't sympathize with what was going on, it would be extremely easy watching that crowd to completely discount the message and then write a smear piece. Again, you don't need to like my take, but this is the big picture thinking. I'm not looking at this as somebody who's just angry. Lots of people are angry. I mean, even Jesus got angry, righteously so. He went in and flipped over the money changers' tables who were taking profit in the temple. There is such thing as righteous anger. But there's a point you have to focus and harness this on something productive. And if you think, somebody said, well, we interrupted his campaign. No, you didn't. You actually gave him the opportunity to play victim. You could barely hear the boos and stuff in the background because they have good audio teams. And so you gave him the chance to go up, play victim, and then he actually, I'll pull this up for later this week, but then he talked about potentially more legislation around speech laws, and then pointed to the crowd as an example for the reason why it's needed. So that aside, we're at the Justice Center. It ties in. There's lots of good people fighting this. And we got to be sure that the things we are doing are actually productive. We'll just leave it at that. Sorry, everyone. That was a big workaround. But back to the Justice Center release. I just wanted to go on a couple of more things here. So they're worried about overreach, but more than this, they had a quote in here I thought was important to share. And sorry, my throat's getting dry. Get that Canadian crack in me. Okay. The release said that Dr. Moore already has the power to make private organizations enforce government-mandated capacity limits, masking requirements, and social distancing requirements. And they've added that the punishment for breaching these regulations and continued orders of the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act have in some cases resulted in crippling fines, business shutdowns, and other serious consequences for business and individuals who assert their freedoms and rights. Okay. Now, there's one more quote I want to pull here, and this was one, I'll be honest, it hit me. It was well done, and it hit me because of not just the background, but also it's spot on. So the release says that passports violate the principles of equal treatment under the law protected under the Charter. 100%. They note that an individual who's not been vaccinated could have a variety of reasons for making that decision. They include religious belief, creed, and medical issues. Now, Ontario citizens will now be segregated, and their participation in society will become limited to what is deemed essential by the government. Sayah Hassan, a lawyer for the Justice Center whose family fled the Iran's revolution, stated that, quote, there is already enough fear, tension, and division in our society. Instead of bringing people together and attempting to alleviate the fear, the government has chosen to mandate further oppressive measures that will only serve to further divide and polarize Ontario. Hassan added that we have seen the impact of segregation of certain factions of populations in history, and how these incremental steps to segregate have led to the loss of freedom of many in those populations. Now, let me bring this around to you. People that don't know, I was briefly in school to be a paralegal before the strikes happened, and I dropped out to go chase a dream in the military. Now, one of the things I talked about in that course, I can remember having this conversation, was with a criminal lawyer. The best way to protect the rights of everyone, because man, how could you defend somebody who's guilty? How could you do that? Like, you know they're guilty. And he said, listen, I'm not defending the rights of that person per se. I'm not necessarily defending them. What I'm doing is defending the system that's supposed to protect everyone from overreach. The best way to protect everyone's rights is to protect the rights of the minority. If we're serious about, you know, all these movements that have come up in recent, I think of Antifa, Black Lives Matter. Listen, we know that the least likely to want to get this is the Black community, Arab community, indigenous and indigenous communities. If we're serious about defending the rights of the minorities, and by the way, we'll say, like, what is it, 6 million Canadians roughly that aren't vaccinated. So that's the minority. But the best way to defend the rights of everyone from further government overreach is to protect the rights of those you don't even like. And that was kind of this criminal lawyer's take, was like, I'm not defending, you know, these heinous actions. I'm defending the system that will protect, you know, an innocent person. And then he basically said, listen, if they beat them, they beat them, but I'm going to make sure that the procedure is properly done, and so that the rights of everyone's protected in that way. And you know what I said? I don't agree with, I still don't think I could ever do that, but I respect you, and I respect that. I can understand the rationale. Continuing on. So we're going to, boom, second topic. Refused entry to debate. All right, so we're on to Cole Squire's story. We just updated this story today, so I think it's a good one to bring back in. But basically, I'll give you the rundown, and then I'll give you a few quotes from Cole and from David Prang, the CEO of the Brantford Chamber of Commerce, who ultimately was his decision to exclude him. But Cole had indicated that he would not disclose his vaccination status or take a rapid antigen test. And these things were required for entry to the debate. So they gave out various rules and conditions that had to be met. And so ultimately, based on these rules and regulations, they did not let him in. They said that additional COVID-19 safety protocols would be in place at the event. These safety protocols outlined in an email to Mr. Squire included things like wearing a mask at all times while inside the market, except for while filming, providing proof of vaccination from a vaccine approved by the World Health Organization, or if they refused or if they were unable to provide proof, they would have to undergo a rapid antigen screening test that must be negative. Now, in responding to the BRCC's decision, the Brantford Chamber of Commerce, to preclude him from the debate, Mr. Squire held an impromptu press conference outside and kind of explained his events and went through some of his debate topics. We have coverage of that. You can check it out if you'd like. I highly recommend it. But in email correspondence with us, David Prang, the CEO of BRCC, said that the People's Party of Canada for Brantford was refused entry to the debate for several reasons. Some of these reasons included things like being over 20 minutes late to the studio. Talked with Mr. Squire. He said he mixed up times, but he arrived at 9:40 a.m. instead of 9:15 a.m. as the BRCCC had requested. The BRCC CEO then said that Mr. Squire only told him of his intention to not disclose his medical status the day of the debate. Quote, he only then directly communicated with me that he was refusing to follow the rules of the debate that were required to ensure the safe participation of candidates, staff, and volunteers. Now, here's the issue with that statement. It's not true. It's actually factually false. So we reached out. Obviously, I don't know if he thought we would, but we reached out. We're going to confirm these things with the candidate himself. Like, what's your thoughts? Is there what do you think? And then he sends us an email, Mr. Squire, and he says, the email says this: he sent an email on August 29th, 2 days before the debate. So that's a lie. What did Mr. Prang say? He said he only then communicated. So basically, he's insinuating that he got in the building late, and then he only then indicated with me that he would not, that he would be refusing the rules to follow the rules of debate that are required to ensure the participation of all candidates, staff, and volunteers. But 2 days prior, Mr. Squire had actually emailed the Chamber of Commerce. Actually emailed David Prang, the gentleman, the CEO who refused him, and said, "I will agree to masking and social distancing." Direct quote from him, Mr. Squire to Mr. Prang. "I will agree to masking and social distancing, but I will not disclose my private medical and health information, nor do the rapid testing." So this is a direct contradiction of what Mr. Prang told us. Now, personally, I don't like, maybe he forgot that happened. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but I don't like when I get told not true things. We'll just leave it at that. And then he said he waited till the day of the debate to communicate that he was refusing to follow the rules of the debate. Now, responding to the disappointment of not being able to be included in the debate, Mr. Squire had said he had been hopeful that today would have been a sense of democracy, but, quote, unfortunately, that was, would have a sense of democracy and freedom, but said, unfortunately, that was not the case. Now, I just want to lay this out here. Okay, we're in the midst of the dire fourth wave. And so this was my question to Mr. Prang is like, why wouldn't, we're in the midst of this wave. Why wouldn't we do virtual correspondence? And then he said, well, it's a quality issue. I was like, okay, fair enough. I understand that. But then this is where I'm like, okay, did they just not want to include all candidates, or was it just a convenience thing where they chose this even if it meant likely discluding one candidate that they might not have? Anyways, it excluded them, and so let me pull this up here. It isn't clear why, but I asked, like, why can't we do this outside? Like, we've been watching politicians do this literally right now on the election campaign. They set up tents and lighting and things to protect the equipment. But we're in the midst of a fourth wave. Why would we host an indoor event where we have to have these COVID rules in place anyways, when we could host it virtually or outdoors where it's much safer? And so in his response to Diverge Media, Mr. Prang responded that there was no reason to go outdoors when we had suitable studio space to do it safely. So I'll leave that with you. You can think, read the article yourself, get the quotes, and make up your mind on what you think about that. But let's just say some indiscrepancies there that bothered me. Again, got the email 2 days before, said that he hadn't received any notice that this would be the case the day of, and then asked them why, like, hey, you're holding these amazing events politically outside on the campaign trail. Why wouldn't we do that with your event to keep everybody safe during this fourth wave? Well, why would we do that? I have studio space inside. But didn't you pick that space? Couldn't you have found other space outside? Like, again, it just smacks of, I know audio is not as easy to set up outside. There is some arguments there. That's not what he told me in correspondence, so we'll just leave it at that. All right, moving on. Nailing the topics here. Social credit. Now, our article here, if you haven't checked it out, it'd be a good one for you to check out. Social credit system discussed in report co-championed by Trudeau's Privy Council. Now, this was a report that came out in 2017. And the Privy Council, for those that don't know, is really just barely at arm's length from the Prime Minister. So this report, titled Capital and Debt, was co-championed by the Prime Minister's Privy Council in June of 2017, and it included public servants from Employment and Social Development Canada, Heritage Canada, Health Canada, Natural Resources Canada, Public Services, and Procurement Canada. And then in the document says it does not represent the official policy position of the Government of Canada. Instead, it records the work of a subgroup or new public servants who participated in Canada Beyond 150, a professional development program co-championed by the Privy Council and Policy Horizons Canada. Now, here's where it gets funny, because obviously I'm going to go, okay, well, what's the job of the Privy Council? What are they supposed to do? So I go on the government page and let's find out what The government says the job of the Privy Council is, and what do they say? They say the Privy Council's own webpage, okay, says they support the Prime Minister and Cabinet in that the department helps the government in implementing its vision, goals, and decisions in a timely manner. So the Privy Council's job is to help implement the government's vision, goals, and decisions in a timely manner. And then they say in the same report, but this document does not represent official policy position of the government. Well, I guess you're technically true. It's not an official policy position. It's just what you would like potentially perhaps to be the official policy position based on the fact that the Privy Council's job is to help implement your goals and vision. So you would think that maybe there's a little more to that than what they say. Well, that's nothing to do with our policy, but meanwhile, the Privy Council co-championed it. But I digress. Some of the things they're talking about in this should wake people up. Access to services could displace ownership. So they're talking about, things like individuals are using digital technologies to access solutions rather than owning assets. The report says that unlike the traditional economy, the access economy uses new technologies that let individuals rent out goods or services that they own, such as clothing, cars, rooms and houses, parking spots, tools, etc. The report says that if widely adopted, the access economy could free Canadians from having to buy goods, especially those that need financing. Oh, goody. The thought process behind this is that if Canadians could have more liquid capital, less debt, and potentially access to higher quality products, it would be a good thing for everyone. Now, that's just one aspect of it, but I wanted to read this one quote, and I'll leave it at that. This article has so much to it. Please go through it. I believe I still have it pinned on the Facebook page for a reason. But the report says that the access economy could be useful in helping Canadian households lower their debt and avoid extreme debt. But I can continue here. With fewer assets, they say, Canadians could lack the collateral to access affordable credit. Depending on how far this new access model displaces ownership, an individual may no longer own their lifestyle. Instead, they might effectively rent it. My, that sounds familiar. It's almost like you'll own nothing and you'll like it. It's almost like sometime I've heard that before, and you're thinking of the World Economic Forum Great Reset, you would be correct. Now, other things talked about in that report continued, things like rating a user's credibility and trust, their social credit, as is currently done by eBay and many others, and they say it's becoming more common. They say that technologies like blockchain are bringing new ways of capturing and accessing more information, and together these developments could lead to new ways of evaluating, listen to this, should give you chills, and could lead to new ways of evaluating who should qualify for credit and services. Based on algorithms, by the way. So that's the social credit system in a nutshell for what we're going to touch on. There's lots to go on there. And then we'll use our imagination a little bit here. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Government doesn't willingly give up power. And to me, this would seem to be a bridge into something more concerning, potentially like social credit, because the system is basically the same. It would already be in place. You require, you need to get this thing in order to be getting into buildings, or your social credit's not good enough. Maybe you said some things that people don't like, and you're also not going to get access to this building. Well, Greg, that's crazy. Maybe, and I hope you're right. But it's the same exact system that would be used. Now, I said this to somebody else, and I'm very curious when these passports come out. The government's been releasing mobility data, and I'm curious to see how the mobility data will coincide. What are the app permissions that are given on these? Because I looked at, I believe it was RideCan or one of the ones, and it was accessing network data and location data, all sorts of things. And so what goes through my head is if they roll out something similar here, and it does have access to that, even just not if you have your phone on you and you didn't have that app, and there was a bunch of people congregating in one area, that might just, because Google and Apple have been releasing the mobility data, that might tip people off to the fact that there's maybe somebody not abiding by their rules there. And so I just want people to expand on this. Don't look at it. You need to remove yourself from the taboos and superstitions of others. And I'm asking you to think critically as an individual and think about how potentially this could be used elsewhere. We thought it all would be done with two. And now we're at talking about, again, earlier in the show, Israel. Every 6 months, you're going to need to get a booster, or otherwise you won't have your pass. Now, if they implement this in the long term, they can incorporate other things into the system. And we know that the Privy Council's office co-championed a report on social credit talking about and exploring the concepts of this idea. I'm just asking you to use your imagination. And maybe ask yourself, where is this going? You know, the income tax was a temporary measure to fight the war. We're 100 years later, you're still paying tax, you're paying it out the wazoo. There's many red flags on this road here, and please, it's all the more important to not say foolish things for that reason, because when we have these nuanced conversations, it's very difficult to get these hard conversations out, and that's why we need to be so careful with our words. But again, please, people, like, I'm not being facetious. 2017 report from the Privy Council office co-championed this report, exploring the concepts and possibilities of social credit in the future. And now we have this passport that's going to exclude people from non-essential businesses, and that concept of scan in, scan out, permission or no permission, they're already talking about it in 2017. What's to keep them from using that infrastructure and coupling it with more things? Just leave it at that. I think that's a good place to go into our next topic. Sorry, everyone. We're running out of time. I always try to keep it to an hour for everyone who's new here. Apologies. I had a lot to talk about tonight, so I apologize. But hills to die on. This is not a direct quote from me. I'm not saying to die on a hill. Or anyways, this is a story I did. I had somebody reach out to me, and thank you so much, Cecilia, for reaching out to me and telling your story. And again, if you're being discriminated against, if you're battling, you know, this in your own life and you have a story to tell, Diverge Media will tell your story, and we'll tell it the way it deserves to be told. So getting into Cecilia's story here was interesting. So we'll pull up the article here for others that haven't seen it yet. There are hills on which to compromise. This is her quote, and those upon which to die. So she's a fourth-year McMaster student who is considering ending her degree over a vaccine mandate. I just want to read a few of the quotes. Again, I don't want to give the whole article away. It's good information, interesting story, but we'll go into a few things here. Cecilia said there are two main issues with the policy. The first is that vaccination status is of a personal, private, medical matter, and it should not be demanded of any institution or person. And the second issue that Cecilia writes is that there is not, in fact, a scientific consensus on the efficacy or the safety of these vaccinations. She cited Dr. Robert Malone, the creator of mRNA, as an example of this lack of scientific consensus. Now, she said that she's most concerned about the blatant and forceful censorship of our medical and academic professionals, some of whom are infectious disease specialists who have been threatened to have their licenses revoked and their careers canceled for sharing any information and or presenting any clinical evidence that does not promote these vaccinations or these other measures. So she goes through her rationale to where she stands on this. But she one of the things she said is she wants to speak up on behalf of younger students who don't have that voice. And I think that's an important thing to do. And I think, you know, I was out at Chelsea Hillier's campaign stop last night, and Professor Bruce Party of Queen's University was there talking about it, talking about the law and different things. And he basically said that unfortunately, we need to stand up for what we know is right. And we need to be willing to pay a price. And I'm not gonna, I don't want to harp on people here, but there's a lot of people, and I would hazard the guess, even in this audience here, there's a lot of people that are afraid of losing something in their own life. And so they aren't speaking up, and they aren't trying to talk with other people that are like-minded and maybe say, hey, maybe if we banded together, we don't have to deal with this. Instead, what happens is, in my opinion, the government gaslights and divides people through things like they'll find people that, are swearing crazy, and then people say, well, I don't want to associate with people that believe in that stuff because look how they acted. And they use these type of things. They divide, and they fracture any community or any sense of community. And when that happens, you lose the opportunity to make an impact. If people band together and you stop thinking about yourself for a second and realize that it doesn't matter what you're doing, you can either pay a cost now or you can pay a greater cost later. What do I mean by that? This isn't going away simply because you wish it to go away. There's a huge battle right now, and it's calling to you to step up. There's a huge battle right now for the hearts and minds of Canadians. There's a lot of people that seem to think that if we just change the jersey of the politician in power, we'll all be okay. Now, I'm bringing this in because obviously our last topic here is O'Toole and the vaccine passy pass. So he wants to have clean hands, but there's nothing clean about what he's proposing. Let's get into it. O'Toole was asked about the vaccine passports. He said, it is also possible to have daily screening tests for some situations for people who are not vaccinated. Okay. So he gets asked about this by Alexa Lavoie. She's a reporter for Rebel News. She went in, basically pretended to be just somebody at his campaign rally. And she asked, do you support the vaccination passport, or sorry, do you think the vaccination passport should have an end date? It's a pretty good question. Because, I mean, if he's for it, it's not really pushing his back against the corner. It's just, do you think it should have an end date? He says, this is a question for the provinces. He goes, here in Quebec, or he didn't say Quebec, but he goes, here, they were in Quebec, the vaccine passport is the same as in Manitoba, but it's different in Ontario. And then he says, I will always respect the areas of jurisdiction and the programs, but for me, you have to deliver the vaccines, the rapid tests, and have an approach for outbound travel. Okay, so he just said, I will always respect the jurisdiction and the programs of other provinces. It's meaning Ontario right now that's jamming this, down our throats, he's going to respect that decision. Isn't that great to know, everyone? He's going to respect that decision. He will do nothing. Red jersey, blue jersey. Same, but different. To steal a line from my old Muay Thai coach. Same, but different. Different flavor of the same thing. It's like vanilla or a slightly different vanilla. Two different brands of vanilla. What's your preferred vanilla? I will always respect the jurisdiction and the programs of these vaccines. Rapid tests, imagine actually advocating for people unvaccinated to rapid test them every day for certain situations to participate in society. Now, that's presuming even that's not that individual paying for that. Still astronomical. Are still not astronomical. It's still unheard of to force somebody to go through a test every day. And if they do have to pay out of pocket for this, last I checked was $70 was the ones I found. $70 every day to participate in society. I heard a doctor talking about, we need people we need people to get vaccinated. That's why we're doing these social pressures to convince them. And you know what? Again, I tell everyone, go find people you don't disagree with. The worse, the better. The more you disagree with them, the more you should listen to them. You need to know the enemy. There's a doctor here. I'm not saying that Canadians are enemies, but the thoughts behind these ideas are the enemy. And he's talking about, social pressure is needed because that's, and he goes smoking, for instance, that's the first step. That's the first step to quitting smoking. You need the social pressure. You need people to feel bad about it in their life. It's kind of making them feel gross. That's the first step. And he goes and he references that into the vaccination policies and goes, and this is why, he goes, I understand we need to, walk the line, and I'm torn, but basically I think it's a good idea because we need that social pressure because it's for the good of everyone. This is the mentality. But all I'm going to say about all of this is when people are saying, we need to get Trudeau, listen, I get it. Trust me, more than you do. I cover his stuff a lot. I'm reading politics every day. Like I wish I could take a break for a little bit. This election cycle is wearing me. It really is wearing me down. But when you have, and this is what frustrates me with the independent media here in Canada, you're not asking questions like, when is the end date for this program that they're going to implement? Why aren't you asking about the fact that he kicked out the Yukon candidate when you get the chance to ask him a question? Why aren't you asking, the fact that he says it's a question for the provinces? Why not follow it up with the question of, so do you think if they put it into place, you'll just step by, just ask the obvious questions? But instead, it seems to be that most people, and media included, are content with this idea of like anyone but Trudeau. I would ask you to ask yourself, does it mean anything different for you and your family if O'Toole gets in? The dude is literally said, I'll respect the province's jurisdiction as Ontario is jamming this down our throats. Do you think he's going to step up and say, well, that's a bridge too far, that's enough of that? No, he kicked out a Yukon candidate for speaking up against those exact things. They don't respect you. They don't. They know that they have to play this game. And this game is, a bunch of the people that are polling, that are humming and hawing about voting for our party or our base, are saying that they're against lockdowns and restrictions. So we can't say anything that will openly infuriate them. So what we'll do is we'll just play coy and we'll say things like, we'll respect the province's jurisdiction as the provinces are jamming this down our throats. And then they kick out people that's voices are being voiced on this issue. And I'm just asking the question, do you really think it's going to be any different when you put on the blue jersey? Talk about vote splitting. I wish there was a vote to split. I wish there was a party that I could actually say, hey, they represent my values, and that's the Conservative Party. I wish that was the case. But when my kids don't know, I don't know when my kids will get their life back and be able to go back to normal to school without a mask, that's problematic for me. When I don't know if there's ever going to be an end date to a draconian measure like a VASI pass, then that's concerning for me. And when you kick out people who voice the opinion of your base, it's not just concerning. That is all I need to know. Actions speak louder than words, Mr. O'Toole. Actions speak louder than words. And now it would be bad enough, or it's bad enough that this party refuses to actually speak up for anybody that is against these restrictions. We have lawyers, paralegals, very intelligent people across Canada and the world speaking about the slippery slope we're on. And I know the media is not reporting it, but there's a lot of them out there, trust me. And we're just ignoring all these people. This is the most dangerous slippery slope we could be on. And you're supposed to trust the people that said nothing for 18 months now? Give it a break, guys. Oh, we can't split the vote. What vote are you splitting? You are literally advocating for the exact same thing with a blue jersey. Mr. O'Toole, I broke down, and for those who want to say, well, Mr. Staley, you don't know. Oh, I bet you haven't even read his platform. 83 pages. I broke it down. I broke down the entire thing. I guarantee I know more about his Secure the Future plan than any other journalist in Canada right now. Because I don't think they're doing a line-by-line breakdown. I don't think they care to do it. But like, man, this guy's gonna save us. He's talking. Let's get to some basics here. Okay, knock knock. Who's there? Debt. Okay, you know what debt leads to? Inflation. I'm gonna save you from all this inflation by giving you more money. That's what the Conservatives are proposing. 10 years to balance the budget. The best thing you could do for Canadians right now to help businesses is let them freaking operate. Let them open. That's it. Protect the most vulnerable. Find ways to do targeted prevention. My goodness, wouldn't it have been good if they spent some of this hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars at getting more medical staff? No. Christine Alley, early on in the pandemic, gets asked about not having enough staff to staff ICU beds and says, well, you know, that's not our priority right now. Ventilators are. Wow, when is it going to be your priority, Dougie? When is it going to be your priority, Christine? Because my golly, we're 18 months into this, and last I checked, you're willing to fire nurses and doctors who don't go along with your narrative. If it's all about health and they were heroes last year, then why in the hell are they the most dangerous criminal now? To the point where you're going to kick them out. There was UHN, United Health Network in Toronto, was talking about 900 employees. This was about a month ago. Had yet to give their actual status and that they may receive their walking papers as a result. But we're in the midst of a dire pandemic, but we're willing to knock out after we already have a shortage and have had a shortage of doctors and nurses for decades. We're willing to walk out more because we care about your health. Can I just say, get your head out of your rear end, people? Oh, this is all going to be over if you dirty, if you dirty non-vaxxers, it would just get in line. This would all be over. Yep, in just 2 more weeks. On an antidote, I think I'm going to do a kind of like a beat on the street, asking random people at the park questions again, because I had a funny interaction with a Tim's employee. I just looked at him frankly and I said, hey, so what do you think? 2 more weeks till we're back to normal? And he burst out laughing. And because it was just one of those things that could just cut through all the nonsense, and it's just, yep, yeah, it has been. I like, yeah, just 2 more weeks to back to normal. You need to understand they've done nothing as far as Conservatives on the split the vote topic. They've done nothing for 18 months other than say Trudeau's not giving enough money. He's not doing things fast enough. That leads to inflation, and the solution from the Conservative Party is things like a 25 to 50% wage subsidy for businesses, a GST holiday. Like, these are utter stupidity. Like, none of this actually helps anybody in the long term. It might look real attractive in the short term, but debt leads to inflation, and all these plans are only going to lead to making life more unaffordable. Ironically, they can talk about housing affordability, but apparently this escapes the media altogether. That debt leads to inflation, and so every one of these promises, you need to ask the question, how are you going to pay for that? Because Financial Post, not to freak everybody out here, Financial Post, I think they said it was 2040 or 2044. By the year 2040 or 44, we'll be at the point where the debt on our inflation will be greater than our entire gross domestic product, the entire GDP. Imagine that. Imagine being at a point, only what, 19 to 25 years away, depending on when that falls. Imagine being at a point where they're talking about our inflation, just the interest on the debt will be greater than our entire GDP. And yet these morons, if I can call them that, these political leaders, if I can call them that, are literally coming out promising you the kitchen sink and everything under it. They don't care. If they cared about you, they would tell you what you didn't want to hear. You want to know the truth? Tough times ahead. Gonna need to be super, super diligent about our finances. Probably gonna have to cut services at some point in time. And people are gonna lose their jobs. And this is fundamentally one of the hardest things for people to grasp is things can hurt people and simultaneously be the best thing for everyone at the same time. What do I mean by that? Well, if we have a bloated public service section, and you say there's 1 million employees, I'm not saying I don't know what the numbers are, but say there's 1 million, just to keep it simple, and we need to cut 400,000 jobs, and we don't even really need them. I mean, quite frankly, you say we could cut these jobs and you wouldn't even notice. There's ways to get around it, but say they need to cut 400,000 jobs. It's the best thing for the country. Can't afford it. Things and then other things that come to mind are like teachers unions getting way too much damn money, and they always complain they never have enough money. Meanwhile, one of the best things they could do, what do they complain about? Class size, class size, class size, class size. Give me more money. Give me more money. Give me more money. Okay, I'll solve one. I'm going to hire more teachers. You're going to get less pay, and we're going to solve the class size issue so that you can't complain. Oh, you don't want to be a part of it anymore? Well, I guess that means you didn't really care about the kids enough anyways. Take an early retirement and leave. Offer pensions on the way out. My point is, there will be things that seem like an attack on people, and this is why politicians will never do the hard things. You might cut public service, and it could be the best thing for the country, best thing for the bottom line, and it's the absolutely right and correct thing to do going forward. But what do you think 400,000, like whatever the number is that you're going to get away with, or do away with, what do you think they're going to think of it? You think they're going to take it lying down? You say we're going to cut 50,000 jobs. What do you think those 50,000 people are going to think? And this is kind of the idea of these big issues here, is that these politicians won't touch these things because they are always looking at polling. They don't have any semblance of character and integrity. And so they'll promise you the kitchen sink and everything under it, even though we have no money right now, even though, okay, I posted on the Facebook page, everyone, from 2020 May to 2021 May, any guess on the inflation on food? Leave your, you know what, like any guesses, throw your guesses. What do you think the inflation on food year over year, May 2020 to May 2021 has been? And then drop them in the comment section. We'll come back to this in a few seconds, and I'll give you the number because it's astronomical. And it's things like restrictions and lockdowns leading to shortages of labor, leading to, and things like giving out money where people can make a decent income. And they go, well, why would I work, 160 hours a month to take home $400 to $600 more when I could pay my bills now? And then you wonder how this shakes out. So labor shortages are leading to supply shortages. On top of that, debt spending is leading to inflation. And so what's the guess? Because 15% is nowhere near high enough. That's actually not even close. So again, people need to understand how high the inflation is on food. Now, it's different area to area. I will say that. This was a worldwide study and average. But yes, it's different area to area, but it's affecting different people, different places because of different supply shortages and the amount, what's your government, how much are they spending, on and on. But all of this I say to say, if somebody's telling you you can have all these things, you can't. I mean, you can. And people like to say, that's my grandkids or kids that are going to have to pay for it. No, it's not. It's you. And you're already paying for it. Yeah, we're getting close, Faye. We're getting close. 30% getting close. So all these things, we'll make life more affordable by spending more money, which has already made your life unaffordable. On the housing thing, there's lots of reasons why housing is unaffordable, but a lot of it has to do with foreign buying. A lot of it has to do with settling 350,000 people a year and then not having the housing supply to make up for even the new influx of people coming in. So you're constantly creating shortages. They can never keep up. At the end of the day, I'll say this. Actions speak louder than words. And when it comes to Aaron O'Toole, I mean, look through his plan. The other thing I wanted to mention, UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration of Rights on Indigenous Peoples, also in the Secure the Future plan. And in that, it basically, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms basically said, It's dangerous, divisive, and divisive. And then they said you'd be right to be concerned about the vague language. I'm paraphrasing, because there might be potential of expropriation of land. Just so you know, that's in that's in the Secure the Future plan of the Conservatives, and they say they support that plan. They support UNDRIP, and the bill, I think Bill 56, I covered it a while ago. They literally say they want to implement in that bill UNDRIP into law, into Canadian law. So it's not just going to be some declaration that's signed. They want it to be worked into Canadian law. But we got close on the 30%. We're going to close it out here. It was actually, I believe, 33.9%. I want to say it might be a little bit less, but it's over 33%. 33% price of inflation on food from May 2020 to May 2021. Now, there's definitely things like supply shortages and things like that from restrictions and lockdowns, and then the stupid stuff like, well, Johnny tested sick at the work, so the 400 people at the factory need to be tested, and they found 12 people who had no symptoms, but they needed to shut it down because they tested positive. That kind of stuff. You're creating shortages of employees by doing that, and it's not just that. Again, people are getting paid competitively, I guess you would say, to stay at home and do nothing. Like, again, if it's $400 to $500 less a month to stay at home and never work, but you can pay your bills, a lot of people, you'd be surprised at how many people are okay with that. And so it's all these things working together, and then you add in the debt. You can't promise more. We don't have any more to promise. But that is a good place to end tonight. I'm going to do a quick look through here in the comments, make sure I didn't miss anything. I wish the exact same thing, because there isn't vote splitting and will not stop me from voting either Liberal or Conservative. Wait, did I read that right? From not voting. See, one word can be everything. Plus to all the freedom fighters out there saying anyone saying there are for this stuff or saying nothing should be trusted. Okay, so I don't deserve to be trusted. This is, for the record, I'm pretty sure one of the people that was upset at me about my take. And again, you know what? You reminded me of it. If it bothers you that much, I know that I do really good work. I know that I unleash a lot of topics that would never touch the light of day. And so, you know what? If that bothers you, if you're hurt by that, you don't like my take, there's the door, top left. There you go. Take that, walk through it, unfollow my page, don't watch you here. All right. And California. Okay, well, okay, it's getting out of hand. Yeah, I know the California banning bacon. Was it banning bacon? I don't think that was the case. It was there's a change in the California laws that made it a lot more stringent, and then a bunch of the pork producers that shipped to California would no longer qualify, and then basically that's what's leading to bacon shortages in California. It's a real thing. But everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'm going to be doing my best to bring as much election coverage as I can. It's been difficult for me to get enough time to sit down and really put my thoughts together, get the articles together, get the everything set up so that I could run a live show. I've been running the wick at both ends, but I appreciate everybody coming out. Help share this message out. We don't get any help from the algorithms, I can promise you that. So we do really rely on your help of sharing it out personally. Word of mouth is the best thing we have. And so thank you so much. Again, I hate to do this, but here's the pitch, everyone. It's not free to run a business. I'm trying to make a living at this. I actually have a cutoff date. I haven't told anybody this, but for everybody sticking around here, I'm basically running through the end of the election cycle, and I'm going to have to go back to work because I'm running out of my employment insurance. My wife got let go of her job, for people that don't know, for refusing to wear a mask. She has reasons for it. We'll just leave it at that. And they locked her out, but she's been on unemployment insurance because they wrongfully dismissed her, and that is drying up. So it's been a great opportunity. At the same time, it gave me a chance to really run hard with the business and try to build it. And you know what? It's been great because we're over 4,000 followers today on the Facebook page, and it's building. But if you can support us, I hate doing this, truthfully. But divergemedia.ca, we take donations, but we also have merch. I'm going to pop one of our custom designs here or our t-shirt on here. This was hand drawn by an artist we commissioned. And so if you want a t-shirt, $35. Did it come up? No, it's not working. And so if you can donate, please. Also merch. But basically, I wanted to close out, just say by the end of this election cycle, if I'm not in a position where this is a viable income, which it's not looking like it's going to be, it's just very inconsistent as far as income coming in. So it looks like I'm going to have to be going back to a full-time job or a part-time job in the meantime. And so yeah, so enjoy us while you can. If you can support us, and if I do start getting consistent donations and it looks like I can hash out a living doing this, I'm going to continue doing it. And it's not that Diverge Media is going anywhere. It's just that the road got a little bit harder, it looks like, if things don't pick up soon. And so that I'll end up having to work part-time or full-time for a few months and then coming back. Not having sure how that shakes out yet, but looks like end of September 20th is the end of the election. Probably going to close up the election cycle. And if nothing changes, I'm going to have to be going back to work. Yes. Oh, what do we got? You should put up links in the video description at the back of your data. Yes. I think, truthfully, I need to do some more work trying to get on alternate programs like platforms like Rumble. The issue here is it's an incredibly small team. I have help from my brother from time to time, but he works full time too. The reality is, I'll lay it out for you. It's basically me doing the video editing, doing live coverage, and doing articles, and then all the editing for the articles, doing thumbnails, you name it. I'm doing all of it. When you send us a donation and you get an email back from Diverge Media saying thank you, it's actually me personally typing out those messages. I try to make them all customized and give personal thank you. So, like, again, it's for me, trying to find time for these things has been difficult, and I appreciate, I do appreciate people trying to help the show grow and build properly. But I'd be lying to you if I said I'm not overwhelmed with things right now. So for merchandise, where can you buy merchandise? Divergemedia.ca. I'll pull it up right here for everyone, and then we'll close out. Thanks for dropping that in there, Faye. A good opportunity for me to actually bring up the merch here. But we also have hats and we have the shirts, but that is it for now. Basically, when you order a shirt, you're going to send us a email or a message with it, a private message with it, and it's just going to indicate what size you're looking for. We are out of extra large, I believe. So we're out of double XL. I believe we have one XL left, and then large, medium, and small. We're good. But go to our shop here. I'll pull this up. I guess it helps if I have the actual screen up. Go to our shop on divergemedia.ca. You can see up there, it'll be on the top. And then you come down. Computer's being so slow. We have our Diverge Media snapback trucker hats. And then we have our media is a buyer's t-shirt, both $35 plus shipping and applicable handling fees based on where you're going. It will vary a little bit. But you can do that to help support us. And that shirt is sweet, by the way. So again, we hand commission that, and I love it. And it's great merch. If you want to help independent media, please do so. That's a great way to do it. If you don't want to just give a donation, that's why we have our merch. But we could not do this without you, and we're going to do our best to continue fighting to be able to do this full time and continue to provide you coverage. And I know for people, this is the crazy part. Linda, Faye, Christopher, you've been around for a long time. Lee North, you've even been around for a long time. But we've been doing this for 16, 17 months, and we still have the core, I call them the main six, the group of six, because I had like 6 people for the longest time that would tune into my lives when I would run on this grainy webcam, and we shifted 6 different times. I've shifted my office or my desk around to try to make better spaces and different things. But for whatever reason, I must have done an okay job, and we had these people stick around and watch us grow. And it's been a huge learning curve. It's nobody's teaching me how to do this, and slowly but surely been working on how things work, trying to get it better and better. And I really appreciate everybody who's stuck around from the very beginning, especially. But I know we have lots of new people in here, and I notice a lot of loyalty and a lot of people returning again and again. So just thank you so much. I'm going to close out on all that, and it will be it. Most of us here right now have been friends for years. So there you go. So that's not necessarily a bad thing to find yourself in the same community. But all right, everyone. Greg Staley from Diverge Media signing off. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.